But Mitch, Trey Lance, you were a Trey Lance believer
I was.
prior to the injury. How do you feel right now? How do you feel?
I'm sad. Well, so here's the funny thing. I'm very sad for Trey Lance because I think it sucks. It sucks for his dynasty value. But I kind of like what it does for that 49ers offense because now I know what to do. I love Debo now. Like Debo is already rising up my ranks because it's like, oh wait, Debo's going to be really good now. I know exactly how he's going to perform in this offense. Jeff
He was gonna be
Wilson,
fine, I think, to
if
begin
they
with.
will give him the ball, he's going to be awesome. And you just know how this offense is going to be with the 49ers now. They're probably the fourth best team in the NFC. And Trey Lance, just from a fantasy perspective, that was fun. But from like an actual NFL perspective, I think the 49ers are going to be a better team this year with Garoppolo than they're going to be with Lance.
Now, you have a lot of shares.
I do. I have 9.
You have 9. Have you done anything since the injury? And let me say, and I know everybody always wants that quick, instant reaction. We give it in the Discord. And we give it in the Patreon. $5 a month. Come check it out. Rest of September is free. Link is in the show description. But we give the instant reactions. But for like the MFL leagues, my fantasy league, you can't trade until in most
Tuesday
of them
morning. Yeah.
until Tuesday morning. I think that is a setting in most leagues. So today really is the first day for a lot of folks to get out there and make something happen. So what have you been able to do?
I picked up more Trey Lance shares.
You picked up more.
I did. So it was a league to where I had like 5 starting quarterbacks. So I was offered Trey Lance for my Zach Wilson and a Mostert and like a 3rd round pick.
Really?
So I was like, I think you're in that league, John, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I picked up Lance. I figure Wilson was never going to start for me in that league. So I could put Lance on the bench and just see how it goes going into next season. But that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I have a lot of leagues to where he might have been my second quarterback and maybe I don't have anyone, to back him up. So a lot of times those leagues, those teams are pretty young in the first place. That's why Trey Lance was going to be my starting quarterback. So if it ends up, I just end up tanking this year in that league, I'm completely okay with it because then I'll have an early 23 first with Lance coming back. And hopefully I don't have to spend that pick on a quarterback.
Before I turn it over to Dan, let's say you're in a scenario, Mitch, because ideally we're sitting there with Trey Lance on our team, and ideally we have our 23 first still. We still have that in our back pocket. Let's say you don't have that pick.
Ooh.
You moved it, and maybe you have, we're rolling with like Wentz, Goff, and Trey Lance. So maybe you're not, off to a terrible start to the season, but what might you be looking to do differently if you don't have that feature first?
No, that's a tough question. I would move Trey Lance. I would probably try to add to him to get Trevor Lawrence. Just someone who's still young that I could build with. I'll probably have to give up someone pretty good. I bet you I'm going to have to add. Look, I'm just looking at your tiers here. It's probably going to have to be at least a Gabriel Davis, right?
Would you have any interest? Would you have any interest? And this is something that I know a few people in the Discord got done, but something centered around a Russell Wilson or a Kirk Cousins, somebody that has been underperforming, that is more of a stable asset than even a Trevor Lawrence. But maybe I'm asking the wrong person.
You are, yeah, a stable asset, Russell Wilson. I don't think that's a real thing. But Kirk Cousins, I could see Kirk Cousins, but I want something else.
How is Russ not a stable dynasty asset?
He's not a good quarterback. Is probably the biggest thing.
I'm dealing with this. About an hour ago, I'm getting messages from Dan. How do I open Slack? Dan, I don't know your passwords, man. That's a serious. Again, I always joke. I say, you wonder why I'm on edge. This is why. I'm living it. Dan, you're on mute, buddy.
The wife stressed me out tonight. I get this new iPhone. It's not that I don't know how to work Slack, but every option they give me, I'm putting it in and nothing's working. So I'm thinking, is there like a certain code we have or something? So that's another story for offline. But JB, you got to bear with us here. But I could see how Mitchell might be firing you up a little bit. But Mitchell's bringing up some good points. Like I'm really looking at this quarterback situation a lot more, and it's really, really interesting after like the Elite Four. And that's a little early for it to get that interesting. But, there's some guys that were in our top 12 that we're concerned about. Mitch is bringing up one with Russell Wilson. I've got concerns around Dak. There's guys in the next tier, Carr's off to a bad start. Cousins looked horrible last night. You see how impatient people get. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of jobs that are becoming uncertainty. It's only week 2. So I think it's for us to decipher what is just a product of a struggling team or coaching staff, or, how concerned should we be about these quarterbacks? And then who's in a class that we just need to be a little bit more patient with? Right now, you're talking about Trey Lance. That's what we're on right now. And I got to say, like, I was optimistic on Lance when he was drafted. Not with the conviction of Mitch. Mitch was in 9 shares. He's got skin in the game there. So much kudos. And he's standing by it with the Wilson trade, which was a fair trade. I mean, you're not losing sleep if that doesn't work out. I mean, but 3 years, no football. He hasn't really shown us anything. Like, this is going to be year 3 without playing football, a prospect that was very raw. My gut's starting to say that there was a narrative out there that he's something that he's just not. I'm sorry, Mitch. I'm not trying to be,
No, you're good. I
but
get it.
Like the red flags are really starting to add up. And I think there's just a big difference between, looking athletic, throwing in shorts and then being in pads and playing in the National Football League. So for right now, I'm like on the Shark Tank and I'm out.
Now, I have to ask the question, Dan, do you have any shares?
I have 0.
Okay.
0.
All
And
right.
some of that might be because I've traded a lot of draft capital when he was on the market,
bit.
when he was able to be acquired that year. But I was never really aggressive going after him. It was kind of a watch and see.
Now, I have one still, and I might leave this up to the patrons in the Discord and explore options maybe tomorrow morning. Hey, here's a link for the league. Have some fun.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want me to throw out there? Mitch and I made a trade strictly because of feedback from our patrons. And
That was a great trade.
Yeah,
Love
we
that
kind of
trade.
have fun with it. And that's something I might do here. But with Trey Lance, like, Dan, you brought up a great point about not playing for, it's going to be 3 years really.
Yep.
And we know he's athletic. We think he's going to be a solid fantasy quarterback, but can he go beyond that? Can he be a reliable NFL quarterback? And if we're talking about risk, the move Mitch made, there's certainly risk going for Trey Lance, but he moved an asset in Zach Wilson that just has so much risk as well.
Mm-hmm.
So could that miss? Absolutely. I personally, and a lot of people were saying, hey, based on where JB has him in the tiers, I should probably go out and try to acquire Lance. I dropped him down to that 18 to 20 tier. And I mean, I'm going to take Justin Fields over him, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Tua, Lawrence, Carr, Burrow, and everybody above there. And Mitch,
Thinking, you bring up Fields, right?
Yeah.
So Fields pretty much isn't going to be in any fantasy lineups if you want to win probably for the rest of the year, right? I mean, he's
Correct.
not streamable, pretty bad.
Yeah, as of now, correct.
Right. It makes me wonder if he should be more valued than Trey Lance, who's probably going to be out all year. So they might.
He didn't just have his ankle. He didn't just have his ankle snapped.
It's true, but he doesn't have an arm right now either. So
he listen. You're telling me I got to sit on this asset, and again, this goes
on Justin Fields too, and he's at least going to look horrible on the field.
Can I finish?
No, you can't. You actually have to listen to me right now.
I'm on deck.
Well, I was mid-sentence. I'm mid-sentence here. If I look to acquire Justin Fields, and I mean, you and I made a trade. I did the trade whenever Lance was healthy, and I was fine with it. It was a 14-team league between you and me. I traded Lance for Fields and Everett. And I would do that trade today for just Fields. Again, risk is associated with both players. There's no doubt about that. But Fields, while he could bottom out, while Lance could as well, there is the possibility that he at least maintains value. You can't say there isn't the possibility.
Of course he can.
Okay.
He might have to throw more than 9 times a game.
So
but-
we want to use a 1-game sample. Is that what we want to do here?
Well, we can actually go back to week 1 as well. So there's a 2-game
And
sample with a new.
Did you see the game?
staff.
Did you see the game? Did you watch the
I
weather?
did. I also watched that Sunday night game. That was epic.
Well,
It must have been a little windy there in Lambeau or something. I'm not sure.
So a 1-game sample.
So as a dynasty theory mediator, let me come in here, and I'm going to come to his defense a little bit. Not that he needs it here, but I'm going to side with JB, and from the perspective, Mitch, that before that injury, they're kind of in the same boat. Like, I had concerns over both of those players. Like, both of them I could be potentially out on. But as we are doing research, never this year have we heard anything good about Trey Lance that made us feel good, other than, oh, hey, game 1 was the weather. Let's see how he does outside of the weather, but nothing good. Not that there's much to go on with Fields, but there are some people out there that still think maybe this is just a Chicago Bear issue.
Dan, you made a great point there. The same game that Mitch is knocking Justin Fields for, he outperformed Trey Lance in that game.
Not by a lot, but he did.
Outperformed him. And not only from a fantasy perspective, he led his team to victory with trash receivers.
And the 49ers are a much better roster than the Bears. Much better.
And Justin Fields led them to victory.
Fields did.
So there is risk around all of those guys.
Yes.
Fields, Lawrence, Wilson. There's no debating that. There's no arguing that. I'm 100% on board. But you still don't even like, I mentioned Russell Wilson.
No, I don't.
You're not. So you would trade Russell Wilson today for Trey Lance?
I'm not going to have Russell Wilson on any team, so we don't need to worry about that scenario.
So
sure, if we have him in a co-own, let's trade him for Lance right now.
Ooh, don't do
I veto.
At least you're getting points from Russ. You're not getting points from Lance.
You got to sit on that asset. And I have, I think, 1 share. And like I said, I'm going to be looking to move him. And I'll report back. I'll let people know. I mean, heck, I got an offer to acquire somebody's Lance. I made an offer for Justin Fields originally because he had both quarterbacks. And then he countered with Lance and later pieces for Kenny Pickett, Amari Cooper, and 23 first. And I said, so the price went up since he broke his ankle, because that's what it sounds like. But now let's get out of the quarterback spot here. Cross positionally, how far down, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, whatever you want to look at, how far down are you willing to go? Let's say you're still a contender. Lance slipped in your rookie draft last year or 2 years ago, and you have 2 solid quarterbacks that you really like. You're rolling with Hurts and Lamar, let's say, and you just had Lance.
Can I get Olave?
For Trey Lance?
Yes.
I'd be surprised if you couldn't.
That would be where it is.
Yeah, I like that. That's
Jameson, someone around there.
I have that's how low I've taken Trey Lance. And this is going to present a perfect opportunity. I know there's people listening and they're thinking, what is JB sipping on in this coffee mug? Because he must be off his rocker tonight. But again, I just don't want that asset that I'm not going to get anything from for this season. And there's nothing he can do in January through August to rise in value, really. There isn't, especially if Garoppolo goes out and is somewhat decent this year and this team does well. We have a question in the chat, and I think it's a fun one. But is Mitch in chronically undervaluing players he dislikes as a tradition? It's like the Masters over here. Tradition like none other here.
It's not my fault they're not good.
But what would happen if this 49ers team goes deep in the playoffs?
Yep.
And they say, Jimmy, we want you back.
Yeah.
Completely shot in terms of value.
Yep.
Completely shot. Looking at some of the comments here. I agree. Now, Jack, I've always liked Jack. I agree, JB. What have we seen from Lance at all in the NFL? But again, you could say that about Justin Fields. Listen, we're in the same ballpark, I always say, but we're certainly not in the same section. That's always like my line. All right, before we move on from Trey Lance, we both, all 3 of us kind of provided our thought, our rationale, how we're valuing him, what we would be looking to do with him, especially across the quarterback landscape. Dan, Trey Lance or 23 first, how early or how late does that 23 first have to be if you're moving Trey Lance? I know it's tough because you don't have him, but
Being that I'm out on Lance, though, I want the first. I'll. I mean, it probably depends on my quarterback situation because I don't want to have no eggs in the basket for next season at the quarterback position. But maybe to your point, JB, if I've got two solid quarterbacks,
no, you don't. You don't in this situation. You have Dak Prescott
and Russell Wilson.
No, you're crazy. You have Dak Prescott, Ryan Tannehill, and Trey Lance on this roster that I just made up out of nowhere.
Horrible. I've got to find myself a way to get a number 2 quarterback. So that first would have to at least be a mid first to move it. Because I'm really concerned about Tannehill. You know, if that's the example, if there's anyone in that class that I think they're starting to lack job security, I might have to roll the dice on Lance unless I can figure something else out. So I need at least a mid first. But if my quarterback situation is stable, I'll take any first.
All right. And that we're saying 12-team super flex league. So hopefully somewhere in that conversation within the snippiness that was the Trey Lance discussion.
And for the record too, because I saw some comments there. I don't know if we answered it. I don't think the Niners could keep Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that's, from what I'm reading, he's gone after this year. Like, I just don't think they could afford to. I think they still, again, are invested in Lance. The Niners are a very good football team. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo could help a fantasy team this year. We know what Garoppolo could do. We've seen that in the past. And I think now you're getting the good Ayuk, not that Ayuk of the first 7 games last year. Now, I think teams might be scheming Debo a little bit better, even though he's still having big games and going to have big plays. They need to get Kittle back healthy, but I think Garoppolo is good for this year, and I think he's just auditioning for a new team next year.